my name is Helen Lane. I'm the vice president for this chapter. And as most of you know, education is a major mission of our chapter. And we have an education committee that's busily giving out grants. So what we have tonight is Karla Klay, who leads Artist Boat, and their mission is STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And I had a chance to go on one of their trips, their kayak trip, to go out to their developed marsh in West Bay. And we had little watercolor things in order to paint the plants. But to me, the most artistic thing about the trip was just looking at what they had done in West Bay. It was absolutely beautiful. So it was with delight that Karla, who has been involved in STEAM education for 30 plus years, and in both education, ecotourism, public areas, and coastal waters, as well as being the head of Artist Boat. So Karla, welcome.
Thank you for letting me present. And that's quite a compliment that I have been involved in STEAM education since I was an artist in resident for the Texas Commission on the Arts in my early 20s and taught art all over the state and in Dallas. And I still have students send me messages, cards, invitations, wedding invitations, birth announcements. Some probably are grandparents by now, when they achieve something great in art or science. So I was always teaching science through the arts, and then got my second degree in marine biology and started teaching that way. So my presentation, first I was going to share with you guys a video that is on our website about our Be One in a Million project. And then I have a presentation of more about our work, but our mission is to promote awareness and preservation of coastal margins through the disciplines of the sciences and the arts. And I believe the video also is a bit of artwork because, well, we had to design the video to tell our story. So.
Welcome to the Coastal Heritage Preserve. I'm Karla Klay. 17 years ago, two friends and I started the Artist Boat to provide inspiration and education through unique coastal experiences. Since that time, thousands of youth have learned to steward our coast through art, sciences, and kayak exploration. 12 years ago, we saw our beaches, our prairies, our wetlands, our dunes threatened by sprawling development. This development would take away the homes of spoonbills, osprey, and more. We decided that it was enough. The Galveston Island ecosystem and the Texas coast are worth protecting. And so Artist Boat became involved in land conservation. Every blade of marsh grass, every blue heron, every turtle, every individual of every species is one in a million. Artist Boat set out over a decade ago to protect these 1 in a million species, from the Galveston Bay edges to the edges of the Gulf of Mexico, to form a bay-to-beach coastal heritage preserve. We have reached the halfway point and conserved 700 acres. We are asking you to be 1 in a million and give $10 to become part of a determined movement to help save 1,400 acres on Galveston Island. The existing and proposed Coastal Heritage Preserve represent a last place of natural significance on Galveston Island. This bay-to-beach preserve is absolutely glorious. The salt marshes and the wetlands, the mud flats and the coastal prairies, and the beaches and the dunes are stunning, hosting homes for the meadowlarks, the piping plovers, the gulls, terns, grebes and their babies, roseate spoonbills, red-tailed hawks, great horned owls, mottled ducks, terrapin turtles, coyotes, fish, shrimps, crabs, and so much more. These are the beings that call the Coastal Heritage Preserve home. We have saltwater plants and animals, freshwater plants and animals who like the salinities in between. We have prairie plants and animals, millions of migrating birds, and animals that need all three types of ecosystems found here. In a small, narrow band of space, the barrier island hosts more biodiversity per square mile than most mainland ecosystems. There are very few contiguous habitats left on Galveston Island that allow one to see the island as it was formed. All within a distance of less than a mile from bay to beach, one can find the barrier island the way the Carwancoa Indians and the Spanish explorers found it. Today, Artist Boat owns 700 acres. Over the last 12 years, we've raised $11.5 million to buy half of this precious land. We were lucky to work with two willing sellers who, frankly, in the past, didn't have a lot of options, but that has completely changed now. The Galveston real estate market is hot, and we do not have another 12 years to get this job done. These sellers will not wait indefinitely. Our opportunity is now. We have 2 years to purchase the remaining acres. 1 million people can help make sure that this land is protected forever. Think of it, helping us save 1,400 acres from bay to beach, the width of Galveston Island. Your dollars will help purchase land directly. They will be used to match conservation grant dollars, dollar for dollar, and your $10 million in donations will turn into $20 million because we'll be able to unlock other conservation grants focused on land. The land left to save is critical to put together and complete the Coastal Heritage Preserve. Adjacent to the preserve is a distinct and elevated peninsula, along with many acres of wetlands and prairies. If Artist Boat does not purchase the land within 24 months, the willing seller who has agreed to hold this land for sale is going to look elsewhere. Once there are permits and plats in place and the houses and bulkheads and piers are built, the land is gone forever. This piece is critical to protect. If developed, it will take away the pristine nature of the adjacent preserve, which you are looking at now. It would mar the view shed, one of the last open view sheds offering almost a 360-degree view on Galveston Island. 297 acres remain between Stewart Road and 3005, and 103 acres remain open as beach and dune habitat in this 1,400-acre system. There's a 3-mile distance where we have wetlands, coastal prairies, and the last remaining sloughs on the island, and the last remaining dunes without homes behind them. By saving this place, we will protect 2.5 miles of undeveloped wetlands. The two proposed developments would have brought 1,600 homes, a hotel, a marina, a golf course, and channelized development. That means that this place would have been gone forever. These developments are still open for development. Artist Boat has a 2-year window to save this place. The Coastal Heritage Preserve is about habitat, about the wetlands, the prairies, the tucked away dunes, and the animals that live in these places. But the Coastal Heritage Preserve is also about having a place for 7 million people who live in the greater Houston region to learn about our island, our native wildlife, and have a place to explore. We cannot just experience nature virtually. We have to smell it, we have to see it, we have to touch it, we have to feel the wind in our face, and sometimes our feet have to get wet. And that's why it's critical to save this place so that Artist Boat can continue to serve people and they can learn, but also so that we can protect the 1 in a million species of plants and animals who live here. That's why when you become 1 in a million, you'll be part of something critical and important and be making a difference. Together, we are more powerful. Saving land is complicated and it's not for the faint-hearted. There is power in numbers and we need your power. We are asking 1 million people to donate $10 to save the Galveston Island ecosystem. You can be 1 in a million and donate $10. You can host your own Be 1 in a Million team, or you can share our campaign. Visit our website and learn how you can be 1 in a million. Click the link below to find out how to help.
From the video, you can see how beautiful the Coastal Heritage Preserve is and how beautiful the other lands are that we are working to save. And these lands are our platform for most of our programs that we do for Artist Boat. At some point during the programming, the students will come to the Coastal Heritage Preserve. And of course, probably the biggest thing that we can ever do is save this place. So we hope that that's going to be possible. All right, so this is our annual report from 2021, but that's really not important. The projects that we started in 2020 because of COVID have taken 2 years to finish, but we just completed a full-blown spring of activities with our partners and are just thrilled beyond belief that was possible. So I've told you all our mission, and then we have 5 core goals to connect people to the Gulf Coast. Environments through mind-opening experiences, which are usually experiential, place-based, and have some component where people propel themselves with their own power, make their own art, and hopefully can engage in some science or learning about the environment. We want to educate and inspire people to action to preserve and protect coastal and marine habitats. That's critical, that whatever we do with people results in their ability to make their own decisions and take action. And then we definitely want to expand programming in existing programs to inform and inspire people of all ages and build more programs to serve people all ages. And as you saw in the video, our goal is to conserve 1,400 acres of land. And we seek to establish the first nationally significant environmental education center on the Gulf Coast. We don't have anything like they have in Monterey Bay or Chesapeake Bay, and we think the Gulf is worthy of that kind of recognition. We have a board of directors. We have a full staff now. And typically on an average year, we're investing $200,000 into our local schools, but as much as $450,000 to $500,000 is invested in our local schools, more typically not in a COVID experience, but that is where we are. And the year of COVID, we led 41 youth workshops and adventures, but this past year, we have surpassed that. Every year we have a variety of programs, so hopefully y'all have heard about them, but our biggest and most famous program is our Eco Art Workshop and Adventure program, which is a series of experiences of workshops in their classrooms and then kayak adventures or walking adventures. And we also do a lot of these for teachers who are getting certified in science and things like that. But the first part of it, the workshop, the students do science about estuarine ecology, what is a bay, what is non-point source pollution, things like that. And they make a portrait of a native species. And then they come on a 4-hour kayak adventure and they make a plein air watercolor. They also take samples of salinity, turbidity, pH, things like that. And then there's a lot of physics and physical learning in how to power a kayak. And then some people say, where does math come in? Well, when you're learning to translate an image that's 3-dimensional to a flat surface, you're automatically engaging in art because you have to bring life-size proportions to a smaller ratio. So historically, we've served every 7th grader on Galveston Island with this program, and we call it STEAM powered. So they go through the workshop and the first adventure, and then we go back into their classroom and they learn more about blue carbon and about sea level rise and climate science, things like that. Then they come back on a second adventure and they do more science and exploration to see, can you tell where sea level has risen? And then they go back into their classroom and we make conceptual art pieces where they translate knowledge about climate science. So they might have charts of climate science or images of pollution or things like that. They're very creative. And somebody called the blue carbon art dismal. Well, the blue carbon art is about translating knowledge about climate science, and the news is not good. So we think that they do a portrait of a native species, they do a beautiful landscape painting, and not all art is about beauty. Sometimes art is about transformation, emotion, things like that. So we're very proud of providing now the full spectrum of art and the full spectrum of science, because if we stopped with just estuarine ecology and didn't talk about climate, and if we stopped just with plein air landscape painting and portraiture, we would not be up to date. We would not be living in the 21st century with these students who need advanced skills in communication and science. There they are with the watershed model. And then I thought y'all would love this. So we had and have an EPA grant from the Gulf of Mexico program, and it's called We Back the Bay and the Gulf. That's our campaign, and we're working with 11 schools. They do get a workshop, a kayak adventure, and then they each have a budget of $4,500 to build and install a nativeScape. So we just had our ribbon cutting on 9 campuses. And next year in the fall, we'll be able to do some work days with them, add some more plants, and then we're building a half-acre nativeScape with OPI, the Coastal Studies program on the island, and adding some things to our 22-acre preserve in Crenshaw. So if at the end, some of you would like to be a part of Artist Boat as a volunteer and help with these installations, we would love that. It's very exciting. So these are just some pictures of the teachers and students getting started. And they have some choices. They can do a pocket prairie, they can do a rain garden. And then their last part of their project is to promote a campaign on campus called We Back the Bay and Gulf, and to teach their peers with social media or things like that about how they can do things to protect our wildlife and our habitats. We have been working with the Crenshaw Environmental Science Magnet School. Now, I think we're on our 3rd year. We wrote a curriculum from scratch for them. They have 22 acres of dune swell ecosystem, just like our preserve. And so we developed curriculum by age levels, grade levels, by season, and by 5 ecosystems. So I think it's 32 lessons that all integrate art, science, math, things like that, social studies, history. And then we created posters by habitat that have the plants and animals that you can see by season. So they have a poster for oak motte, for coastal prairie, dunes, freshwater wetlands, and saltwater wetlands. All of these students also go birding with us annually. Every kid on campus goes on birding tours. We have created a series of murals. And this year we've worked on a habitat management plan that they can implement over 3 years. So another great opportunity. We definitely need volunteers, even though we do have paid staff. You know, these are big projects and we need help. So another plant restoration project was conducted, and it was finished this year with NOAA Be Wet, which is Bay and Watershed Education Training. With Pasadena ISD, they learned to turn the tide by advocating for tomorrow, informing their community about current and social ecological issues, discussing, debating our next steps, and then learning from shared experiences. So they do a workshop, they do an adventure, but their project is to do dune restoration. And then they created podcasts that they sent out to their friends, families, and other community members. And they planted, I can't remember, but we've done almost 5 acres of dune restoration with these students now. The great thing about our programs is that obviously teachers gain a lot of knowledge. My students gained an educational and physical experience that they'll remember forever. Students say that they've had the best time ever learning. And of course, they get to explore and be adventurers. Our tagline is now inspiration and education through unique coastal experiences. Our previous tagline was a partner in education. So the other thing we've done in the past year is we partnered with Sea Star Base and we wrote their STEM to Stern program, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, and developed their trip routes and all the points of discussion that would occur on their vessel in Galveston Bay. So that was great. We made a series of videos and there's great virtual tours now of the programming. And then we had a lot of funding for professional development the last 2 years. And we had 2 on just how to teach and translate knowledge about climate science. What kind of projects can you do? And then we had a whole another professional development on creating nativescapes, pollinator gardens, rain gardens, things like that. And so last summer we had over 80 teachers involved in our theme programming and learning how to create art, create habitat, and things like that. Helen was describing our public kayak adventure, where basically you do the same thing that the students do, because we're all kids at heart. And probably most of you haven't made a watercolor or a work of art at a very long time. So we take groups of people out. Our guided tours are limited to 10 participants, and you go with an artist and biologist for the day. We load and unload, which I think makes the trip even more fabulous. Our biggest art program really is our Eco Art residency program, where we go into the schools, go into art centers, go into libraries, and do art projects that either result in large scale art or they result in take-home projects. So these kids are holding up their portraits of whales, they're making masks of sharks. So we bring the things into the classroom that they're learning from. These are the murals created at Crenshaw, and these are from the wildlife posters that we created, but the wildlife posters are line drawings, and these are obviously painted by students, and there are 5 large-scale murals on the campus. These are all about, I think, 8 by 5 feet. So here are some students just involved in making art and sampling and doing more hands-on activities. I talked to y'all about the EPA Gulf of Mexico program. The first slide was really about them participating in the workshops and adventures, but here they are designing and developing their nativescapes. And then the Noah B. Wet students planting dunes. You know, after this experience, I learned that trying to help the planet, even in a small way, is a lot more productive than not doing anything at all. That's a student from Westside High School. So these programs do impact the students tremendously. Through this project within our community, young people have been encouraged and energized. This was about the professional development, and we had over 72 teachers in 5 different programs working very hard. Other things we do are more for the public. So we have a Beautify the Bucket campaign where we have people adopt the trash barrels that go on Galveston beaches, and then they paint them and we judge the trash barrels. It's super fun. Last year we have eco art camps at the preserve now. So we have one that's kindergarten through 10-year-olds, and then one that is 11 to 16-year-olds. And they have a great time. They're basically outside, kayaking, walking, birding, making art. And if anybody wants more information about that, we're happy to share it. It's also online. But many grandparents have enrolled their kids and grandkids and stayed on the island for a week and just had a blast, which we were really excited to learn people were doing that. If you all ever have an event where you need something hands-on, Artist Boat loves to do outreach and will come do modified smaller programs, things like that. You know, it just depends what your event is. We have free beach tours on the weekends all summer long. Anybody can enroll, and you go on a guided tour on the beach with the marine biologist and nets and buckets and explore the flora and fauna of our beach. It might look like not much is there, but when you're with a marine biologist, you learn a lot. And then this year at World Oceans Day, we're looking for partners to come have booths, but also this year we're going to have 4 separate tents with hands-on classes, eco art classes delivered by different organizations around our bay. And so you can register and come with your child, your grandchild, and make a coral reef, or we're going to have a printmaking tent and some other things. So go to our website and learn more. A lot of people are concerned in the environment now about diversity and inclusion. So last year we served almost 4,500 people, which was pretty good for a recovery from COVID, but still over 57% were people of color and 44% were under the age of 18. And it just really depends on the program. If the program requires a fee, then we are not as diverse. If the program is a program that we've raised the money for, then, you know, we are targeting schools and communities that are underserved. And then through all of this, we have a growing preserve. So we have group work days. The Native Plant Society would be welcome to do a group work day. We have the Gulf Corps. They come and are learning how to be stewards and are paid. And we get them for 10 to 20 days in teams of 8. They're fabulous. And then we also have Eagle Scouts who volunteer to do things like build the shade structure on the right. And then you saw the video about our Be 1 in a Million campaign. And so we're very excited about that. And I'm going to give you a quick update on that pretty quickly. But our land acquisition. So when we made the Be 1 in a Million campaign, we were working on a 2-year option for this white shape. We just finished that in March of 2022. So we got a little bit longer for our campaign than we originally planned on. And they want to build 52 houses on this peninsula. So that's really an immediate threat because we have 2.5 miles of living shoreline that we could protect permanently. So that 2-year option is for $6.5 million. People think it's very expensive. If the developer sold the lots today, they could probably get $100,000 down on each lot and the lots would sell for $750,000. That's without a house on it. That is how expensive the land is here. But since we made the video, we closed on this red shape, which was a $1.3 million transaction for 75 acres. And we closed on this orange shape, which was also a $1.3 million project. This is 44 acres. And right now we have 2 $1 million grants, each for the green and the blue, and each requires $350,000 in match. And we've raised $350,000, but we need $700,000. And so they're the same granting agency. They've asked us to close on the parcels together. So that's our plan. But our immediate need is to raise $350,000 by July 29th to close. And then we'll have protected this 1 mile distance from Paps Road to 11 Mile Road. And there's a 1 mile long wetland in here. You can see it just a little bit through the colors. Previously, this would have connected to this slough that is running out into the bay. And this slough would have connected to our slough that runs through our property. So we won't ever be able to reconnect this because they filled these lots, but we can save it from further damage. I mean, a 1 mile long freshwater wetland is a big commodity for wildlife. And annually, we have an annual Float the Boat event, our annual fundraiser, super fun outside on the prairie. People love it. And that is my presentation.
What inspired you to bring art together with STEM education?
Well, I wasn't trying to do STEM education. I was just trying to integrate art and science, but technology, math, engineering are all part of science. So I think the highest level disciplines are science and art. Art involves engineering if you're a sculptor or an architect. Art involves math. The number 2 pencil that we all revere is very high tech and meaningful. And, you know, we humans have benefited greatly from artists. And then with science, art and science used to be connected in all the schools. You know, the Renaissance was just founded on the exact desire to integrate art and science. But, you know, I'm not sure what inspired me. I grew up in the Florida Keys with a shark biologist, and it was so beautiful. And I'm so lucky. Our neighbors were the Flipper Sea School, where Flipper was filmed. And I just grew up with tremendous beauty. And then when I moved to Texas, my grandmother was very successful jeweler in Indonesia, and she immigrated to Dallas. And I was a little bit in shock to live in Dallas, and her friends took me all over to museums, and I realized that humans could create beauty and be inspired by it. But I just find science and art to be safe havens for knowledge, creativity, freedom, exploration, adventure. And if you want to have fun, go anywhere with an artist or a scientist, and you'll have a great time. I think that's what inspires me, is adventure and seeing and learning, really. You know, as soon as you ask a question, you have to see better or know more.
I meant to say the public tour that I took was, we were going out against the tide. So when we went out, we took some muscle to get us out there. And then, of course, once we got into the bay and got into the marshlands, then we really had a delightful time. But we had a little bit of a lecture. We didn't just paint. We did a little watercolor. Yeah. And then going back out, of course, we had the current with us, so we got back a lot easier than we did to go out. So it was a little bit of a challenge for us. I never kayaked.
People always want to know which trip will be easy. And I always say there's always one direction that's harder than the other. There's no way to do it otherwise. You know, you have to get in and out from the same spot. So no matter where you go, but some days are harder than others. Right now we have so much wind. Every day on the island's very windy.
Joe put in that he said he's seen the bucket parade regularly from his sea turtle patrol. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're out there on the beach. Yeah.
Everybody seems to having so much. Are there schools in the Galveston that you work with? I think you mentioned a couple of schools.
Yeah, we serve every 7th grader annually and every 4th grader annually on the island. And then we also are a big partner with Pasadena ISD. And so we serve between 1,200 and 2,000 students from Pasadena ISD annually in after-school programs and our middle school adventure program.
I did get one question here. So many wonderful educational programs and fun activities for our communities. Can you tell us about the staff and the expertise they have?
Oh, sure. I love to. All of our employees that work with our students or the public have an art or science degree. Most of them have some mutual interest in both. And then, of course, our administrative staff, bookkeeper, development, stuff like that, they don't necessarily have an art degree, but one has a background in architecture, one has a background in art history. I'm probably the only one that has a degree in fine arts and marine biology. I have 2 degrees that each took over 140 hours to get, but I did not get a graduate degree in either. But, over time, people, right now we have a young woman, she's leaving. So a lot of times it's their first job and they stay a year or 2, and then they get, of course, better jobs than working at a nonprofit. But Delaney has a minor in art and a major in environmental science, and she's a very talented artist and can teach art very well. So we feel really fortunate to have talented young people work for us. I just really want to figure out how to keep them longer, but I think that's kind of normal that you would graduate and might work for a nonprofit, but it's probably not sustainable for your.
The question of diversity in environmental education always comes up because our future depends on it. And both Galveston and Pasadena, aren't those pretty diverse school districts?
Oh, yes. And we also serve Houston ISD, but not as much, but historically we did more. But my background as an art teacher, as an artist in resident, art museums, art programs have been fabulous at serving the underserved for a very long time. So when I started Artist Boat, I already knew that we need to get funding to serve the underserved. So we've been doing that since day one. We need more paying customers, and schools would be great. So most environmental education organizations have the opposite of us. They have lots of schools that pay year after year to come, but they're highly Caucasian, and then they don't have any subsidized programs or free programs. But 90% of our schools that we work with and students and teachers aren't paying for any of the programming at all.
That's a really good point.
But it's also hard to sustain too.
Well, I really appreciate you spending your time despite all our little technical glitches. Seems like Zoom has pushed us all. But thank you so much, and get down there and be part of Artist Boat. It's a really pleasant experience.
Thank you, Helen. And thanks, Debbie, for your technical support. And to all of you for loving native plants.